Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, hello there, good morning and a very warm welcome to the morning show, where we're glad actually that you are joining us to take it on. It is Tuesday, the 25th of July. Quite an impactful one this morning. I do have a full house with me, and of course we will be navigating within the country, politically, economically and socially. Also we'll be taking you what is happening beyond Uganda, and by my crew I mean I do have Felix Nkunda. Now this morning something is taking my attention. You know, when you're living in Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, they come with a lot of gratefulness, if that is a word. A lot of things that happen can get you off the mood. Now, yes, General issue an arrest warrant. Guess what? To the executive director of the Uganda National Bureau of Standards. Apparently, this guy actually did confess that he bribed the board about 100 million Ugandan shillings for him to keep his contract. And after he was summoned to go to the inspectorate, he did not show up on Friday. Hence, the arrest warrant that is now out there, that is for the ED, Dr. Livingstone Ebiru. Now, this is getting me thinking, how did we get here? How did we get to a level where an executive director has to bribe his way into keeping? I don't know whether he feels the same, whether he's just ignoring the whole story. Good morning, Felix.
Well, morning, Morgan. How are you?
I am 50-50.
So are many of Ugandans in the wake of very many sort of like absurdities. We continue to see a lot of like that particular issue.
Yeah.
Quite disturbed under us. But short of the same is that how people want to make it, want to get us to a place where critical abnormalities have to become so normal.
Yeah.
You get the point. We have heard that he was, of course, fired. There's a new boss at the place. Definitely, his arrest warrant is out. But what does that say about institutions? The other institutions, the parastatals. Of course, if you start now checking, probably most of them are checking themselves. You know, that's what I've always said consistently. There's a big contestation between political administration and social welfare. Now, cadreism. And this one we have seen in many institutions, many installations. Cadreism, tribalism, favoritism, all these things. Normally, we went to school together, probably she's my tribe mate, probably, you know, there's all that. So that's quite a big challenge. But if you want me to step far from that story, Mollen, yesterday and today morning, I've picked keynote that the prices of charcoal are going high from the stories we hear lately. I think that springs from the most recent directive from His Excellency in regards to cutting of these trees. But government also came out to advise people to use gas. To use gas and electricity.
It's clean energy. So yes, that's the direction we should be taking.
Well, everyone would want to get there, but there's a big question. Look at Uganda's economic setup. Let's be honest. Look at the issue of affordability. Look at knowledge on usage. You know, all these things are challenges. And that's the reality, because you can imagine people who are doing these small businesses, Rolexes, there's women who cook food in kafundas and what. Now they have to buy gas. I am told now a sack of charcoal is at about 100 and something, to 30 or something like that. Now imagine the businesses, because now let's look at these small startups, small businesses, because when you look at these, let me call them Bufunda food people, they vend food and what, employees about 15 people on a daily.
And it's quite, because now we're looking at a direction where everyone could be moving in for, you know, gas, but also government has to be considerate, because I know that there was a pilot initiative to give free gas cylinders and gas to, I think, that was Kampala and Wakiso.
Yeah, there was some registration that got done.
Along, but maybe we'll be seeing how it unfolds. But I don't know, Olive, what is taking your attention this morning?
That shooting that happened yesterday when police was trying to arrest some individuals, yes. And they ended up shooting and actually killing one Jacqueline Nalwanga. Mm-hmm. So obviously the police says they have been searching for these guns, but in trying to get to them, people surrounded them and they ended up shooting and ended up killing someone. But my question here is usually, why is it that in most cases it's people that are not even concerned with the issue at hand, yeah, that actually end up being killed?
Yeah.
Our soldiers.
I don't know how that whole thing goes, but I would think that maybe to disperse, like, you know, a situation like that, maybe they wouldn't shoot to kill, maybe they would,
or maybe don't
do something in the air or something. But I think we still have a lot of work when it comes to having clear guidelines with security. Maybe Robert usually has I wanted to say connections when it comes to security, but I think it is the truth. He's very connected. We will need someone to come speak to us about this, and I think he's the right man. He's the right man to get us.
Is it in the name, Robert?
Good morning, Robert.
A lovely morning to you, yes. And of course our viewers. Thank you so much for waking up with us. Now, police, there are two words that over a time they have used, and I think we should come to the bottom of them and either have people held responsible. One is reasonable force. You know, they'll manhandle them, beat them severely, and those, well, the law tells us to use reasonable force. Who measures what reasonable force is? Because they'll tell you, well, it is that force necessary to make that is the subject surrender or conform to any form of enforcement, you know. Well, hit by a stray bullet, and we simply go by that. She was hit by a stray bullet. But you see, I'm not an expert in guns. I have some bit of knowledge about it. A bullet cannot get out of a trigger on its own.
Yeah. So,
you know, when you listen to that story, of course, investigations are still underway. But according to eyewitnesses and the son that was with Justin, these people woke up to go to the garden and get some yams. Now, these operatives had laid a trap, and this was just so these policemen, I mean, men in civilian clothes. Okay, for security purposes, we know most of those guys of CMI, flying squad and all that don't wear a uniform. So it was normal for them to sound an alarm, to get scared. And then only Naranga hit her. Now, why would we say a stray bullet? And then we should, who had this gun? Why then would you shoot at a lady you're seeing who has come to the garden? In case you are trying to trap or capture some people, you know, still there was so much. There's two things, reasonable force, stray bullet, I think they're subjects to investigation. Now, Felix talked about charcoal prices going high, and the fact is most of that charcoal was coming from northern Uganda, because it is believed by, I spoke to some charcoal dealers who say that is the area where they still, it is hard for you to find very good forests where someone can invest, cut the trees down and get profit. And the ladies will tell us.
But also, Robert, if we are trying to really get onto a very good track with our environment, there are things that we do expect that it will be a transition, not an easy one, but at least a transition that is leading us to the right way. Yes, for now it's going to be complicated, it's going to be expensive, but it is something that we can count on as, you know, us being on the right track to, considering what is happening, the climate crisis across the world. Well, a lot of things are happening within the country. We'll be looking into local stories with Felix and Robert. Oliver and I will go through the international stories. What are we starting with, Robert?
Looking at our local stories this morning, we'll begin with what is transpiring definitely on the local scene. We have that is the timber export ban, something related to, of course, protecting the environment, where the Uganda police has deployed tactical units in timber trafficking hotspots, especially at border posts, to implement an executive order to counter the exportation of timber and illegal charcoal dealings. This follows President Museveni's directive, which banned the exportation of timber in a bid to conserve the environment.
Raphael Majezi has said that the Market Act of 2023 will end disputes over ownership. He was launching the reviewed act which addresses management structures in markets in the 2018. Honorable Margaret Rab Shaija Namubiru, a Waka MP, sponsored and tabled a new law in Parliament on administration of markets. President Museveni did assent to the same on May 22nd, 2023. The Minister for Local Governments, Raphael Majezi, did launch the Market Act 2023, and the new Market Act of 20 did replace the Market Act of 1942.
And now, looking at the political arena, the Democratic Party members of Parliament have questioned the fate of the Memorandum of Understanding between DP and NRM. The MPs say that Norbert Mao has officially been welcomed to the NRM and can no longer spearhead the party activities. In a letter addressed by President Yoweri Museveni, he officially welcomed Norbert Mao to the NRM after Mao's function dubbed Mao Homecoming was a success. Meanwhile, the MPs subscribing to the NRM have welcomed Mao. The move will improve service delivery.
And the Minister for ICT and National Guidance, Dr. Chris Bariomunsi, says the presidential directive on channel all government adverts through UBC and New Vision is premised on the account that government accounting offices over the time have been diverting revenues made for government adverts to private media houses under unclear circumstances, leaving the state-owned nation broadcasters, UBC, with peanuts to manage government programs. Now, the intentions of government bureaucrats had remained unclear why they were suffocating government national broadcasters. However, interim intelligence briefs indicate that private broadcasters have been offering bribes in form of commission to some government bureaucrats to give them businesses.
And now in our international stories, Israeli members of parliament have passed into law a highly controversial bill despite mass protests which aim to thwart it. The law removes the power of the Supreme Court to overrule government actions it considers unreasonable. It is the first to be approved in a series of bitterly contested reforms aimed at curbing the power of courts. The planned reform gets protests in Israel's history, with opponents warning they imperil Israel as a democracy. The government argues that the measures are necessary to correct an imbalance in power which has seen the courts increasingly intervene in political decisions in recent decades. And in the United States, former United States President Barack Obama's personal chef has been found dead in a lake near the Obama's family home in the resort community of Martha's Vineyard. Massachusetts stated that a paddleboarder who was seen getting into difficulty on the Edgartown Great Pond was the Obama's personal chef, Tafari Campbell. Campbell, 45, worked at the White House before continuing to work for the Obama family after the 44th president left office in 2016.
Away from that, at least 15 people have been killed and 26 injured in wildfires ranging in different parts of Algeria, according to state media, as a heat wave spreads across the region. Monday, that at least 1,500 people have been evacuated in the north of the country. ABS also reported that at least 10 soldiers were killed in Beni Kisla region, according to separate statements by the Defense Ministry. It was not immediately clear if the soldiers were part of the death toll cited by the Interior Ministry. And in climate news, Greta Thunberg's past conviction climate protests. My actions are justifiable, Thunberg told the court in Malmo, according to local media outlets. I believe that we are in an emergency that threatens life, health and property. Countless people and communities are at risk both in short term and in the long term. Thunberg was part of a group of protesters that blocked the road for oil trucks trying to access to Malmo harbour. She was charged for failing to leave when ordered to do so by police. Thunberg has been slapped with a fine in the order, although it's not clear how much she will have to pay, as the fine will be based on her reported income. Now, also what is happening with our dailies this morning, we're looking at a big headline in the New Vision this morning: chicken on market laced with HIV drugs. Doctors warn of dire health consequences. Quite an interesting one right there. Museveni is later to Mao. That is also one you can find. How Namiro into investors. Very, very good story. What are we looking at in the Daily Monitor this morning, Felix?
Of course, 3,000 teachers failed to graduate. Of course, there, and of course also IGG orders police to arrest UNB boss that is under Proba LRA rebels return to their families.
We still have a lot to dissect this morning. We'll be going in for a song of the day. When we get back, it is Good Morning Uganda Newsreel.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Or issue an arrest warrant. Guess what? To the executive director of the Uganda National Bureau of Standards. Apparently, this guy actually did confess that he bribed the board about 100 million Ugandan shillings for him to keep his contract. And after he was summoned to go to the inspectorate, he did not show up on Friday. Hence, the arrest warrant that is now out there. That is for the ED, Dr. Livingstone Ebiru. Now, this is getting me thinking, how did we get here? How did we get keeping a contract? And this is just so disturbing. I'll bring in Felix here. I don't know whether he feels the same, whether he's just ignoring the whole story. Good morning, Felix.
Well, morning, Ma'am Molin. How are you?
I am 50-50.
So are many of Ugandans in the wake of very many sort of like absurdities. But we continue to see a lot of like that particular issue.
Yeah.
Quite disturbed under us. But short of the same is that how people want to make it, want to get to a place where critical abnormalities have to become so normal.
Yeah.
You get the point. We have heard that he was, of course, fired. There's a new boss at the place. Definitely, his arrest warrant is out. But what does that say about institutions, the other institutions? Of course, if you start now checking, probably most of them are checking themselves. You know, that's what I've always said consistently. There's a big contestation between political administration and social welfare. Now, cadreism. And this man we have seen in many, many institutions, many installations. Cadreism, tribalism, favoritism, all these things. These are the things. Yeah. Because I know Molen, we went to school together, probably she's my tribe mate, probably, you know, there's all that. So that's quite a big challenge. But if you want me to step far from that story, Molen, yesterday and today morning, I've picked keynote that The prices of charcoal are going high from the stories we hear lately. I think that springs from the most recent directive from His Excellency in regards to cutting of these trees. But government also came out to advise people to use gas. To use gas and electricity.
It's renewable. It's clean energy. So yes, that's the direction we should be taking.
Well, everyone would want to get there, but there's a big question. Look at Uganda's economic setup. Let's be honest. Look at the issue of affordability. Look at knowledge on usage. You know, all these things are challenges. Now today people are out of business. People can't cook food. And that's the reality, because you can imagine people who are doing these small businesses, Rolexes, there's women who cook food in Kafundas and what. Now they have to buy gas. I am told now a sack of charcoal is at about 100 and something, probably 120 or 30 or something like that. Now imagine the businesses, because now let's look at these small startups, small businesses, because when you look at these, let me call them bufunda food, on a daily.
And it's quite, because now we're looking at a direction where everyone could be moving in for, you know, gas, but also government has to be considerate, because I know that there was a pilot initiative to give free gas cylinders and gas to, I think, that was Kampala and Wakiso.
Yeah, there was some registration that got done.
Along, but maybe we'll be seeing how it unfolds. But I don't know, Olive, what is taking your attention this morning? Good morning.
Good morning. For me, it is that shooting that happened yesterday when police was trying to arrest some individuals, and they ended up shooting and actually killing one Jacqueline. But in trying to get to them, then a group of people surrounded them and they ended up shooting and ended up killing someone. But my question here is usually, why is it that in most cases it's people that are not even concerned with the issue at hand that actually end up being killed? Are soldiers sometimes trigger happy?
And it's kind of sad, because I don't know how that whole thing goes, but I would think that maybe to disperse, like, you know, a situation.
This is Good Morning.
Well, good morning, Uganda. Time now to look into our topic of discussion this morning. Now, in a bid to conserve the environment, earlier the president did direct for a ban on exploitation of forest cover, and much of that due to deforestation. And more of the purposes for this deforestation has been to actually produce this timber, and most of that being exported out of the country. But as we move to get our environmental conservation in play and also protect and conserve our forests, this has really taken a huge toll on the forests in Uganda, which is why there has been a directive for that. Now, yesterday we did also see that the Uganda police has deployed tactical units that is in timber trafficking hotspots, especially at the border post, to implement that executive order to counter the exportation of timber and illegal charcoal dealings. And obviously this is something that the police is is talking about, so that they will be actually implementing it and help in conserving the environment. But so far what we know is that in Uganda, if you look at the statistics since 2001 to 2002, 5.9% of the tree cover has been lost in areas where the dominant driver has been due to deforestation. And of course, moving on, you also see that a lot of the activities that have been also resulting into this deforestation, of course, go to the charcoal burning and of course the timber that in the end of it, it's being exported. And this is where we want to also focus our discussion. As we look at police implementing this ban, we also know that there are people that have been dealing in exportation of timber, but majorly we want to concentrate on what this means, especially if we're talking about conserving the environment. I'll bring in Robert here. We are talking about a country that in a span of that is about 2 decades, we're having an increase in loss of forest cover. And of course there are people that will be complaining on how especially we are looking at the charcoal prices go up, the people that have been dealing in that. But what are we looking at here in terms of our goals?
Now, first and foremost, we must all agree that over a period of time, we've had various changes in our environment, the floods we've had in this country. Most of the stories, most of the information you get from people, we had forests, we had wetlands that were acting as water reservoirs or catchment areas. Today here we are, we've lost our wetlands, we've lost our forests, and these used to protect us so much. Now, I think it was early last month when His Excellency issued this directive, the Prime Minister invited stakeholders at her office and told them banning exportation of timber. Now, without value added, because this ban is not banning you from exporting a bed made in Uganda, exporting furniture made in Uganda, no, but timber in its raw form for export. Why? We have about 43 registered companies that have been dealing in timber exportation, where Nkunda Felix maybe would have a 1/4 acre, buy that forest, cut down the trees, have charcoal. These are people who cut trees in huge volumes. These are people who have machines, not using pangas. They come into this country as investors, or they are Ugandans who come in, who begin this business, and their role is to cut trees and export them. Now, when you cut a tree, the impact of cutting trees on a large scale, you leave the ground bare. However, the letter I read through, the president was concerned that when these people are getting these licenses, there are terms and conditions they should abide by. But over a time, they have violated this. We have deforestation, we have afforestation, and reforestation. Now, this per given a license, which has a clause in it that you plant trees. If government has given you 10 acres, it should be that after certain time, when you've destroyed a third, then you plant, you in this particular area. So it was you cut, you plant, you cut, you plant. But many of these people had not done that. 2, there's a clause of value addition to the timber you export out of Uganda. These were taking logs, no value added. And remember, whenever you take something in its raw form, there is so much that you're taking out, not just what is seen. Ugandans must understand why His Excellency is so much into value addition is not only the money you get when you add value, but the process of value addition, the other raw materials that come along with it. If you cut a log of a tree and you take it, there is so much you've taken out of Uganda than just that log. Because maybe the first peelings should be used for something medicinal and all that. So they say that that is why even when it comes to coffee, the president is saying, you're looking at just taking plain beans out of the country, but other jobs created on adding value to this. So the president came out and said, we can no longer have people who are just taking out timber in its room. Then when it arrives there will be these ones that are more jobs are created to add value to it, because if you're taking a log out, they're going to maybe make paper out of it. There's plywood, you know, someone will make a chair out of it. All these are jobs that you're leaving behind. When finally they are maybe one is making plywood out of it, the rest of it is going to go maybe into building bricks or logs or something like that. So you're not only taking this log that we are seeing loaded on sometimes on water, loaded in these 40-foot containers, but you're taking...
There's a lot that goes in there.
Yes, there's a lot. So you're taking both jobs and other raw materials that are coming from that product. Yes. So he says, we cannot afford taking out these trees, these logs in raw form, but also you're not being able to follow the requirement that you're planting more. And much as we've had enforcement, it seems this has failed. But above all, also he goes to the element of environment protection that have been put in place is so much alarming, and yet we are witnessing the effects of climate change due to lack of this forest cover. For example, we know that there is a type of rainfall that comes from forests. You're the people in this area, you know. Not only do we get rainfall that is coming from water bodies, but also the tropical forests give us very good rainfall. We are losing out on this rainfall. When we look at controlling soil erosion and holding soil together, our brothers in Bududa will tell you that destroying trees that used to act as holders of these waters when they come with high tides. So by and large, it is how the president saw it wise to arrive at this directive, which police is now saying we have pressed our tactical teams at our borders, because some people use our border points, and remember we have porous borders, to ensure they will still take this timber out of Uganda. And what Enanga also said, that even on air, well, I don't know if I have those that even load these and they have flown out of this country, to ensure that this directive is enforced. And when I was speaking to the executive director of Uganda Forestry Authority, I wanted to have him, he said that we are going to enforce this without sparing anybody, to ensure that we do not have issues that have been arising where certain times these directives are not enforced to the latter.
Absolutely, and we're looking at the fact that you did bring out good points, because we know that we have been having campaigns on alerting people to plant trees. So what would be the use of us carrying out, afforestation and planting all these trees if the end result is going to be, cutting them down for something that is probably not bringing in as much value as you would expect for the entire country. And we know that some of the top districts actually that have had to maintain much forever, according to the Global Forest Watch. We're looking at Gulu, we're looking at Masindi, on that list is Mubende, Chivale and Ruero, and these are the districts actually, because if you look at Gulu, that's where the president was recently and did talk about the charcoal burning in the area. And this is all very impactful, but we want to dissect when we are talking about this directive and the police enforcing it. Felix, we would want to understand the impact of that, and not restricted to just the positive impacts. We could also look at how the gaps and challenges that could be looked at in enforcing this particular directive.
Wow. Probably what we see today is the actionalization of a grammatic saying that better late than never. Because if you want to take stock of what has been happening to the forest cover in the country, it is very much sad. And sadly, today the biggest people who are showing up to assist have been the best perpetrators. A lot of deforestation, yet knowledge has been there. For example, because the forestry has its own enforcement team. But you ask the first question, before even we get to the point where we are, what has been happening? Why has it been happening? Why do you choose to throw the net now? Now, when you get a country into a particular way of life, and overnight you think you can remedy these challenges, you create a mayhem. Truth be told, it is not wrong. It is not wrong. But there are guidelines. For example, you look at private forests. Someone plants a forest for that purpose. You get the point. Someone has about 100 acres of land, but those were planted for the purpose of probably cutting timber. Okay? The biggest issue is with the people who cut national reserved premises for purposes of a natural prestige reservation. And that would include our national forests and their reserves that are on. If you are enforcing against this, for example, one of the directives about exporting logs in real form and not without value addition and all these things, how do you implement that against a private person who owns? Now, this is the reason why consistently we have been saying that government should take up some roles. It should take up some roles, like anything to do with national conservation. You want to have government have an upper hand. For example, we saw it coming out a couple, and this is why we say that these processes should be fair and open and transparent. Because now, who did we give the trees to? Do you have a record? What was the purpose? Maybe it was to cater for this gap. Is it doing so? Because we should be able to dissect and know this is for preservation, this is for other usage. And all other countries have these things. One can be done without affecting the other. But we just have to plan better, in my opinion. Secondly, this thing of protecting and conserving the environment, we have been having this talk for how many years? It must be a full front approach towards preservation, a singular approach. It must be a universal approach. It will be so useless if you enforce correctly against deforestation and you fail to enforce against wetland encroachment. Even if you score 100% on one, because this, as I said, it must be a full front approach. What is our statement as a country about conservation of the environment? What? That should be the true discussion, not to pick out specificities that are now let's look at, because it is now looking like some particular group of people are being attacked, and that's how it is being portrayed. And I think it was in Ngulu when we saw the former member of parliament, they were caning someone from the central region about. So for you to have it fairly as a meeting place, you would want to have it as a universal approach to all, because this will say, okay, you're stopping the people who are doing charcoal. How about those ones? Environmental conservation. We need to have a thorough discussion, because you're having
one thing at a time. If we are looking at forests,
Actually,
we're dealing with forests, and we know that there have been interventions about the wetlands, but we might.
Yes, there have been.
Like which one?
Major one has been government banning issuance of permits for any work in a wetland. That was effected since last year.
Do you want me to take you where people are even constructing today morning?
We
No,
even
you see,
had, I think at one
illegalities-
point, the
illegalities
NEMA had a team
may
that
not-
was on Ruby G, getting people.
So the enforcement we are seeing, and you see when you talk about illegality not being, and the reason is not because we don't want, but it's because as long as a law or policy or directive comes in place and it seeks to attack a particular sector of people, it will lose relevance. This is a good one. We have been crying about conservation of the environment. Forest, let me tell you, there was a time, and you know this, go inside those forests, there are no trees. You start with the Mabirazia. You just, at the face of it,
On the roadside there.
but you go inside,
Yeah.
there are no trees. Where did they go? They evaporated. But there's NFA.
Yeah.
What are they doing? They get funds from government annually. So now they are waking up. That's what I'm saying. It looks like oppressive. Because people are saying, but look what, you know, like in Uganda we say, kutira kuliso. If we have chosen to make enforcement, let's be universal. Secondly, it's important to create alternatives. Because you see, as much as something is wrong in context, it could have been a known way of life of a particular group of people. So what do? You're talking about job creation for some people and unemployment for the others now. Let's be rational. Leadership is about creating a balance. These things have happened under our watch. He's talking about exporting of logs and what and all these things. The reality of the same. Chidabo, you cannot export logs. Between you and me, you know, who are doing these exportations. They're not lay people. That's why you talked about only 40 how many companies?
But 43.
Out of 45 million Ugandans. Only?
Because
Do you think these are lay people?
the investment it takes.
Exactly. So who are these people? Do they have their forests? You know, the problem is that when we get stories like this, the public, we are only able to get the prima facie facts of the matter. But secondly, how sustainable is this enforcement?
And I
If
think
you've
for
lived
me,
in Uganda for long,
that's where I want to pick it from. I agree with Felix when he says we must have a wholesome approach to environment protection. And I must say, of late, I've seen government intentionally moving into that direction. Of course, challenges are not being avoidable, because we know that for every enforcement, you know, when you're enforcing against the environment, when you're enforcing to protect the environment, know that the economic benefits, and of course anyone would try it. There was a major breakthrough in the fight against wetland degradation in this country when government, when parliament, when NEMA came up and it was clear that now you cannot get a permit. Because previously, all these industries you see in wetlands, they were disguising under what they call the Environment Impact Assessment Report. Now, that they would give you a license and give you terms to minimize, I want to use that word, to minimize the side effects of the business you're going to do there. If they saw it that, well, even what you should do to minimize is almost impossible, then they would deny the permit. But there was corruption into that. That sometimes people would bribe their way and get these permits. So government said now, as long as it is a wetland, for you who wants to do legal business, we don't give you a permit. Not saying that illegalities won't happen. Because even yesterday, NEMA was still trying to get people from wetlands, you know, or people who are doing some business there. So now whether you want to put there something temporary, it is a no-go area. That was a breakthrough. We've seen people from remote enforcement here and there have said gaps remaining. Now, for the forestry issue, it had also been the fact that people are getting licenses on exporting timber. Government is saying, we are not refusing you to be in these forests. Add value to the timber, then export, because you've added value. If it is, they're not telling you that if you're going to have a workshop and manufacture beddings and what value. When we go to environment protection, that's what we are telling people who are in Uvera business, that you see, go into harder plastics.
Yes.
Stop this ordinary kavera. Government has left a leeway for you. Government is saying, if it is for local market, that can be okay, because you also need this. But the magnitude will not be as much as when you're exporting, where a person can go ahead and in a day maybe 5 hectares of land are dealt with. So the biggest question is now, how do we selective enforcement? Because these are big monies, these are big investment, and we know much as we have these enforcement agencies, there is something that has still derailed and failed us. And I want to quote the words of these people that appeared before the Parliamentary Committee, Kosase, and someone talks about I have a box and boxes of letters of exclusion. There's a term he used, meaning do not touch that person, leave them. Selectiveness. This is a presidential directive, but you have a lot of influence in most of these things. That when you deploy police officers, how much have you empowered them away from just saying, I'm enforcing a presidential directive? You know, how good are we? Otherwise, it's going to be as good as not so much when we see that you have Felix company, it doesn't export, the situation is hard for them, whereas Chirabo day by day I'm putting logs on water and they are leaving the country. So this is a very good directive that implementation or enforcement may end up being selective.
Oh, and that is something that we still would be focusing on, to see that wholesomely this is enforced across, you know, the entire sector. It's not like some people will be benefiting from still something that is being banned, because if they are saying there is a ban on exportation, then it's a ban all across.
But you see, also the biggest problem we have, one of the problems we have, is enforcement. One would say it is common sense.
Clearly, there will also be
today, my brother was talking about giving people trees to plant. I want to tell you, we've had very many occasions, the schools we all went to, the guest of honor comes, or the president visits. I know a place where the Pope visited, and he planted a tree. Molen, how many of these trees are still standing? You know, the guest comes today, plants a tree to signify that he visited this particular area. As is out, the head teacher's goat is coming and destroys this tree.
So clearly there is need to also, you know,
understand. That's why you see a border rider. You know, he has a helmet and he's putting it before the motorcycle to sharp police officer. You need to have enforcement with sensitization. And sensitization without enforcement is also... So these two move in hand.
Well, the ED for National Forestry Authority, that is Charles Bate, last month actually came out to say that annually across Uganda, we're losing, that is about 120,000 hectares of forest cover. And this is something that is still going to be attributed, because we are exporting timber.
Has he given you the reasons why? He's simply asking to retire with such a statement. That's a very stupid statement.
But you see,
no, he's giving you what is
so we
the facts on the ground.
Do what
for you to know the danger at hand.
So justify when you know what he's saying. No,
this is like when you get to know Felix. When you get to know as a media personality.
Let me say this, because it is such facts that actually drive conversations about
yes.
it. And we're looking
looking for facts.
What is justifying.
See, that's what we are saying.
No, Felix. What I'm simply saying is that when we are saying there is going to be a ban on export of timber, we are also considering this kind of loss, these kind of numbers that are coming up. How do we counter that?
We are not short of facts.
I would want to understand, because we're talking about interventions here, and yes, the ban is one way, but when we are looking at numbers where we continuously have forest cover, we're losing our forests, what would be, the role of government here, but at the same time, providing alternatives? Is that something that we can still be looking forward to?
You know, here's the thing. He talked about something to do with sensitization. Do people in this country understand something called... It's a discussion we have, because it doesn't need someone to be educated. Yeah. Are we open about environmental conservation discussions? What we see is backfilling of swamps every day. People, as I've told you, the forest, when that man comes and says, I hear whatever forest whose is been lost, the question is, who does Chirabo, you in your Chiraboness, can you go to a forest and cut trees, a national forest? Chirabo, can you?
Even those growing yams there just with bullets.
It is exactly, it is someone. So that's what I'm telling you, it is a very, very shallow statement. It's like you're bragging, telling us, because as an institution you've failed to protect the forest, is what you're telling us. 20 years ago, what was the forest cover vis-a-vis today? Even with an authority under a full ministry, what went wrong with a full enforcement team? Why are you giving us statistics now?
So we do what? Increase, that is encroachment of these forests.
Encroachment, very good. Now,
there is commercial ability there.
Where are you? So you're telling us, to college. You're sleeping on job when they're cutting. I've given you an example, and you can go, anyone watching us, go to Mabila today. You go inside. Stories are being done here on these other TVs, national broadcasters. Where are they? Now you're coming us to say that's fact, so we say sorry. No, we appreciate the problem. For what?
And then this raises
this
constant
attitude.
We are drumming drums.
This is what happened to UNBS.
Let me make a point. Yeah.
This is what we face with institutions like UNBS. Is it UNBS, that man who said that he gave 100,000, it's 100 million? Those are the kind of people we are talking about. Mediocre leaders. How dare you go? Do your job.
It's like exposing that, yes,
for who?
We have this is the problem.
You see, there's a mandate for an authority,
yes,
and that should drive its execution towards the mandate. So when you're reporting that every day you're failing on your mandate, it's what it's telling us.
But Felix, as we conclude, what we want to also look at, yes, the role of government is there, and clearly there have been challenges and gaps, but let's talk alternatives.
Well, for me, I think, one, let's make the discussion about environmental conservation generally a household discussion. You talk about climate every day. You've been working in Kampala, you've seen the hotness. Now imagine our brothers and sisters in the north. These are the causes. Let's make this discussion a household belonging. The Buganda Kingdom came here to say that whenever we are going to some of the cultural functions, let's advocate for
Tree planting.
Why don't we have this discussion? Tree planting, conservation, don't encroach. These things, are they taught in schools? What are we teaching our kids as early as nursery? Away from Kokomero, Scooby-Doo, what are they learning in terms of environment? The child needs to grow knowing the use of a tree, the use of a lake, the use of a swamp. Those are basic things.
Yes.
Those are some of the things that are going to help us. Secondly, alternatives must be made affordable. If you don't want Chako to be here, how much is gas? We have continuously discussed the price of electricity in this country. How much is a unit today? About 1,000? You pay, because when you pay 10,000, they give you about 9.5, sometimes 11, whatever. But that means one unit. Now, how long does it take a saucepan? Let's talk about the common.
You could end up with 4 units.
So, or even more. Now, you're going to spend 5,000 on cooking beans, only beans on a daily. Can we afford that? Let's be honest.
We need to revise the prices there.
Of the alternatives. If you want to talk about gas, let's know who can use gas and the dangers. You know the dangers of gas. In our setups, you go in a house where people have 2 rooms, there are about 17 people, congestion, people are going to die.
Yes.
So let's not rush to excite ourselves with some of these things. Let's be a bit and find alternatives. Let's not rush to, because we have already made wrong. Let's not think that.
I'll give Robert just a minute to conclude. We're still talking about how we move forward, alternatives.
First, we must embrace afforestation, but make climate, environment talk our daily meal at all levels and prioritize that. Let's look at how more we can plant and maintain, not just plant, but maintain these trees. Because if we have so many, then this will also help in one way. But also finally, these are very good directives and I want to thank His Excellency. But our enforcers and implementers is where we find a problem. Environment conservation has a connection with people's earnings. If someone has been getting money through exporting logs, so you must have a well-thought system to enforce against this. I'll say that time is now. Let's cross the bridge. The rest we shall handle when you arrive there.
Absolutely.
Cannot continue looking at this, that. We shall get there.
But we'll get there, and for now we'll leave the discussion at that. We also want to look at what is happening with neighbors, looking in the dailies, the Daily Monitor, the Daily Nation this morning rather, is showing a big headline right there as Uhuru speaks out. Not my problem with Ruto. Well, a lot to uncover right there, but also looking at majority feel the country is on a wrong track. Poll shows, well, quite interesting one right there. Kenya loses millions in crypto scams. That is a story for you in the Daily Nation. We cross over onto the Citizen, looking at fuel stocks are plenty, but farms issue dollar plea. Well, that is also much more covered in there. Act faults Zanzibar port investment and what youth want from human capital summit. That is a lot in there as well. Tanzania's sugar company goals as it acquires Ace, a producer. Quite a lot to uncover as well as you look at the dailies this morning. We'll be taking a short break. When we get back, we talk traffic and weather.
Pick of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
Get away with MTN Momo Advance. Momo Advance tops up your Momo to complete your life. MTN Momo Advance is always available when you need it.
In fulfillment of the constitutional obligation, which mandates the state to make reasonable provision for the welfare and maintenance of the aged, The Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development is implementing the Social Assistance Programme for Empowerment, SAGE, designed to provide income security and reduce poverty among older persons. Over 300,000, the income security has made life better for eligible older persons aged 80 years and above, registered with the National Identification Registration Authority, NIRA.
nyewe ndi baranyita Jefferson Kahindi Rujanjara Kabura Gomborora Chanamira Kabare district nkagamanya kurugirira abebembezi ba naharwedi akasente kaba kayikuru kanyambireho aha kuboneza biogas yanjye nenyamba kuteka ikabere nenyamba nahatara kwa kamwe nahabwe etara kwesa mantron ka pressure lamp eri kubasa kureta na haba homuyaga iri kunanka katamusora wene etara najireka ninkoza muhega kuteka kusha naguraho nembuzi kandi n'ibindi binshatekereza gukora government kongera hakasete tukabona ukutwa shashura n'abakozi ubuyambe bwa government twire ntitubwacira kandi tubushemererwa konka twenda cyokuberekira basika batwongereho.
This is a message from Expanding Social Protection, ESP, implementing the program under the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. ESP, better life chances for all.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, good, such a wonderful morning. So as you move from your places of abode and head to town, to your places of work, I would like us to look into the day's traffic and see which routes you can use so that you get to your destination in time. So we will pick it up from Chira town, and yes, around the roundabout there is a build-up of traffic because of the roads that come from the areas of Bulindo, Kasanga, trying to join the roundabout and feed into Mbogo Road. The Chira Road roundabout, Mbogo Road seems to be clear up until the road that comes from Esela joining the main road, but then it clears up again up until Najera. Now in Najera there is some bit of build-up, but it clears up as you head into Chiwatule. That is still Mbogo Road. Now as you enter Najera 2, there is some bit of traffic because of the roads that join Mbogo Road from Bulabira Road and other feeder roads along that same route. But then a road, you continue along Mbogo Road, it is very clear, so you can step on your gas and continue going up until Najera Police Station. It is still very clear, and then when you're about to reach the bridge, there is a heavy build-up. Yes, here you may be held up for quite some time, so you need to negotiate your routes very well because yeah, there is the red lines show that there is heavy traffic along that route, and then it continues, it goes on. Yeah, so this morning, many people seem to be on the road. I think many people didn't wake up early this morning. But anyway, as we continue into Ntinda, that is after Chwatle, it is very clear. So there you may be able to drive a little fast as you continue into Ntinda. But then there is a traffic build-up at the T junction from Nalia, and of course from Chwatle side as you head into the main road that takes you to Ntinda. Then as you head into Ntinda, along the traffic lights, because of the roads that come from Chambogo, yes, so you will be held up a bit on that route, but it clears up after that. So you head into you go along and along Chira Road. Now at Chira Road there is traffic, there is heavy traffic around the traffic lights, and as you continue along, it is heavy this morning. It is truly heavy, but you continue going. You're going to build-ups here and there, and then in many places you're going to find a lot of traffic, so you need to negotiate your routes very well. Wow, Molen, this morning seems to be tricky for road users.
I know, it's quite some traffic building up over there, and usually that's mostly like, you know, the kind of a busy time, I would say that.
Yes.
In the morning everyone is rushing.
It's about 10 minutes to 8 o'clock, and I think most people didn't wake up early, so everyone is on the road.
Nah, the waking up early thing, I think they can leave it for us. But we will also and see what's covering Uganda. But we are looking at mostly dry weather, and this is across several places within the country. We did see a few rains come through last evening. That is across parts of the northern Uganda. Also did see that mostly for the Karamoja region and the eastern part of the country, where we actually did have a pickup in isolated showers. Otherwise, we continue to have temperatures go up for most of the areas within the country. But looking at what we have this morning, another cloudy day again, starting off for midwestern Uganda. We do have expectations to have rains for midwestern Uganda. So that is areas Hoima as you move into Masindi, also for areas of Fort Portal, we do expect that we could be looking at a few rains. Where we see the white colors on the map right there, that is indicating cloudy weather, and the blues are showing rains that are starting to develop. Quite a few drizzles again along Lake Albert that we do expect will be developing into much more rains for today. Again, mostly we're looking at intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions. Those are across parts of Central as well as the Central Lake Victoria Basin. So Kampala right now, Wakiso, Entebbe, and looking at areas of Mityana, Mubende, we are having mostly cloudy weather with intervals of sunny conditions, and looks like that might continue for much of today morning, except in the afternoon is when we expect a few rains to come through, especially for the Central Lake Victoria Basin. We actually did also have drizzles last evening across parts of Kampala, and the fortunate bit or unfortunate bit is that with Kampala, when it rains, you could find rains in Wandege, and then Central City you don't see those.
As in, sometimes you walk into town and you're like, really, if I'm late for a meeting and I tell someone that I was held up by the rain, they're like, are you really?
They wouldn't believe you.
They wouldn't believe
But that is what we call the isolated rains, usually for this time of the year. Since it's not a rainy season, most of the rains that come in for this time of the year have such pattern. Though don't be surprised if we say it's going to rain within the central part of Lake Victoria Basin or central Uganda, and it's just raining in one area, and another it's completely dry. The temperatures are shooting up. We're seeing, temperatures in the upper 20s and the lower 30s, especially for much of the northern part of the country. But talking of which, we are also looking at a heat wave that has engulfed Algeria, that is the northern part of Africa, and this has also been related or linked to the increase in temperatures over the northern part of Africa. According to the reports also this morning, is that so far people have died due due to this heat wave, and of course looking at evacuations that have been done across the northern part of that is Algeria. What we do know is that most of this has been fueled by the heat wave that did result from the increasing temperatures, and also for this time of the year. Now, it's not only Algeria that is dealing with this, also Tunisia. Wildfires did sweep through the border town of that is Melora, and witnesses did tell news agencies that at least these fires began in the mountainous areas that had reached some people's homes in town and forced families, hundreds of families actually, to flee. And the northern part of Africa. We've also been recently talking about the heat wave in Europe, in Asia, and also for parts of America. This is all cutting across. We did see a lot of records being broken. The first week of July was actually the warmest week ever, according to records dating back from industrial level. And this is something that we are concerned about and being linked directly to climate change. Also, we did see shooting numbers in June where that broke record, putting the world the warmest it has ever been. That is something that is still taking attention, also from dating numbers from 19. In Algeria, we have seen that at least 10 people were confirmed dead, and also the numbers did go up to 34. That is including the 10 soldiers that were also reported on Monday from the heat wave. And we also know that around 8,000 firefighters were involved in controlling the flames, according to authorities. And the Interior Minister did come out to say that most of these are being contained. They are putting up more fire operations to keep the flames under control, but these seem to be continuing and taking on more hectares of land. We're here talking about forest cover, but we also know that there are natural events that do come through, and also when it comes to man-made or related impacts of what we're doing to the environment that are shooting numbers in terms of temperatures up, henceforth resulting into such wildfires that end up taking the forest cover. That is something that is very concerning as well. We are looking at what is happening, especially with extreme weather events. It's not just the heat wave that is worrying the world right now, but we're also having the other side. Now, just yesterday, a report that was also coming in from Canada does indicate that about 2 people have so far died from the floods that did happen, that is through into Monday across Canada, and specifically for areas of Ottawa. The storm, which started actually on Friday in some areas, did dump a lot of rains over the area, and the floods washed away. That is a bridge in the over the area, and much of this did track back to the Canadian National Railways, and this has triggered more reported dead, and a culvert was also washed away because of these heavy floods. It is a very, very funny situation. You look at the other side of the world warming up, and another actually getting into trouble when it comes to floods. It's all interrelated, I am telling you. Look at that map right there. That is an analysis that was done by Copernicus in collaboration with the World Meteorological Organization to assess how far we are warming. And this was done on Tuesday, that is the 18th of July 2023, looking at indicating how far temperatures are rising. And take a look at the northern part of Africa also going into purple. That is where we're having much more of the temperatures. And all the areas right now that are dealing with the heat wave, even to the parts of Asia, the US, and across Europe, that's the area that we're seeing in purple and red, and indicating very, very high temperatures. A very worrying see that we don't wish to see the consequences here. But Olive, as we are now going to become a weather person here, we're looking at temperatures shooting up, causing in all these floods, causing in all these droughts. We've had our fair share here in Uganda.
Yes.
The Karamoja itself has been dealing with extended drought for all these years. Exactly. And you wonder why, as individuals, we are not taking action against climate change.
It is actually our very actions that are leading us here. Now, when you talk about Karamoja region, we know that it is because of the place is a semi-desert. Now, if you continue to cut down the few trees that they have, you're going to create a dangerous situation.
Exactly.
And then, of course, when it comes to things like floods in parts of the country like Eastern and parts of Kasese, it's the way we plant. Yeah, so when we have landslides and of course where we situate ourselves, and you know you cannot against the environment. At the end of the day, the environment is going to win. Unfortunately, it's going to affect loads of lives.
And what we are doing now is we have to adapt because things are already changing. So that means that we have to live with how the changes are coming in, but also put a lot of efforts into conservation to make sure that we preserve what is there. The window is still there, by the way, to avert the crisis. We still have targets that were set across by all these agreements that have been put, to counter climate change. But if we don't take advantage of the window and have all this action, we might be getting much more of these scenarios, looking at more of these, unfortunately, deaths that are resulting due to climate change. We will be leaving it at that. My name is Molly Kenyana. I want to wish you a wonderful morning.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by Get away with MTN Momo Advance. Momo Advance tops up your Momo to complete your transactions. Dial *165*5*3# to apply. MTN Momo Advance is always available when you need it.
Inflation obligation, which mandates the state to make reasonable provision for the welfare and maintenance of the aged. The Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development is implementing the Social Assistance Program for Empowerment, SAGE, designed to provide income security and reduce poverty among older persons. Over 300,000 older persons in 146 districts in Uganda have benefited from the grants. The income security has made life better for eligible older persons aged 80 years and above, registered with the National Identification Registration Authority.
Semu Kahindi, Rujanjara, Kabura, Gombora Chanamira, Kabare district. Kagamanya kurugirira abebembezi ba RC bari kutugambira naharwedi akasente kaba kayikuru kanyambireho aha kuboneza biogas yanje nenyamba kuteka ekabire nenyamba nahatara kwa kamwe nahabwe etara kwesa mantron ka pressure lamp eri kubasa kureta haba homuyaga irukunanka nkatamusora wele etara najireka ninkozesa muhega kuteka kusha naguraho nembuzi kandi n'ibindi binshatekereza gukora.
The program under the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. ESP, better life chances for all.
Mukoke Fish Farmers Association tuli balunzi ba byananda ebyebika ebisatu omuli Miracap, tilapia oba engege ni group eno twatandika twali abantu basatu nga tulingirira obwetaavu obwebyenanda obwivwa enokuba ente akava mu maadi agali gatambula butambule nga gatubita ku wanu ng'ekirabo. Twatandika ni fish pond ndala mu mwaka gw'2018 twebaza fisheries officer ni district ya Bugiri babanga batulagirira kusani fish farm ebuyikwe ni side day dindeyo twabanga tusobola okufuna kwetusako obugege obwasooka era mu mwaka ogwali 2020 awo basobola okuba nga batuwaayo ebyenanda emitwalo $400 okuva mu operation Werese Creation. Era okuba ayongerezaako emmere yatuweebwa okuva Uganda Poultry Breeders. Twasobola okuba nga tusoloza akasente akawerera obukayire nga 42. Twasobola okuba nga tubuinvestinga oba okubona nti twongerezaako ku bimu ku bintu bye tukola gano. Twebaza gavumenti yaife okuba nga buli saawa efaayo okuba nga efeeri y'abanayu.
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning and thank you so much for being with us on UBC TV. Welcome to Good Morning Uganda agenda, where we look at issues of national concern, but you are also able to be part of the topic of discussion in this particular segment, and you do that via our number which will be popping up on your screen. You send a text message or a WhatsApp message and my guest will be able to respond to that. Now today I have and I'll be discussing issues regarding Kampala, capital city, and that means someone from the authority who is the Deputy Director, Public and Corporate Affairs, Simon Kasiate. What are we going to be discussing? An update on the infrastructure developments in our city. Kampala is a city made up of 5 divisions, so we are going to look at the fairs that are in Kawempe, Machindye, Kampala Central, Nakawa, Rubaga. And how far are these various developments? How far have they gone? What are some of the challenges? And what do we need to know as people? The man with a bow tie. How have you been?
I'm great, can't complain much. I'm happily quieter than it was a couple of months ago with regard to the cry and hue about the state of our roads. That means something is happening.
First things first.
Tell me.
The roads. Simon, you people received money. And at one time, the Deputy Director said 70% of the roads had been worked on. When I moved through the 5 divisions of Kampala, what I see, yes, I've seen some roads filled with a substance I may not be able to understand, similar to soil, sometimes to sand. And I wonder...
All those are different types of soils. Loam soil, subsoil, sand soil.
Whatever the soil is, it's not fit for the purpose. Then I've also seen some punches being done on some roads, and as if someone wants to do tailoring or something like that.
There's an interesting road in Lubaga called Church Road. There we patched the pothole in the shape of a cross.
I'm coming. You see the way you've... So I keep on asking myself, what different compared to the situation? Because we had a media expo showing roads and all this, but it seems not so much was done. And when we hear of the monies that were released at that particular time, we feel there wasn't value for money, Kasiate.
Mr. Chirabo, I want to put it on record that maintenance of roads is not a once-off engagement. It is a going concern, like nourishing your body. That when you have a good cup of coffee as you're having this morning, by about midday you will require a snack. By 2 o'clock you're having your lunch. 3 p.m. you're having another snack. Then you have your dinner, and the cycle continues. The maintenance of roads in this city is a going concern for KCCA. Let me just paint for you a broad picture of where we stand in as far as roads are concerned in this city. This city of 5 divisions, as you rightly said, has a total road network of over 2,100 kilometers. Let me repeat that. 2,100 kilometers of a road network. So it's like a spaghetti connection or vein connection of roads. From the main highways, as you see, Kampala Road, Northern Bypass, the little road that leads up to your house if you live within Kampala. Can I tell you something about the state of those that are paved? Of the 2,100 kilometers, less than 700 kilometers have chorus, old or new, but it's there. That is 30% of our roads. Now, of the 30% of those less than 700 kilometers of roads, some of that chorus is over 20 years old. If you go to Prince Charles Drive in Kololo, for example, road has not had serious maintenance in the last decade. Now, engineers will tell you that a road that has gone for more than 10 years, 20 years, requires complete overhaul. There's only so much patching you can do. It will look like the famous song of Dolly Parton, A Coat of Many Colors. You have patched it so much that the best thing you can do is scrap, the engineers calling scarify, and then make a new layer. So we are having 3 phases of repairs on our roads, Mr. Chirabo. The first one is where you have isolated potholes in city roads here and there on the chorus roads. Our division engineers and their teams come in and quickly patch those with availability of budget. That's why we said in beginning of May that we have so far patched up 70% of the potholes we had identified up to the beginning of April. I want you to follow that statement very quickly.
Now the patching only happens to those we've called chorus roads.
No, the ones that are isolated, what we call routine maintenance. I want you to follow my words very carefully.
And I'm even jotting
that our city engineers do routine checkups on potholes. We know them. We'll tell you that in Ndubaga, and I've sent you a table, your engineers should be able to put it on the screen, that in Ndubaga, for example, we have identified 2,000 something square meters worth of potholes as at the end of April. Budget coming in, by the beginning or by the end of May, we have patched up 70% of
the potholes
that were identified. But when you identify it by the end of April, between April and May, new potholes have developed. Those you are not touching, you are touching the ones that were. When you are done with those, then now you begin to patch the new ones that are forming up, because every day our city is alive and bustling. We are not asking you get out of the city, go back to villages, we patch potholes, you come back. No, we repair as you are working on them. It's a going concern. So that is phase number 1, routine maintenance. Then there is the second phase that we call sectional repairs. There are parts of roads that have chorus, which have broken down so badly that you can't patch them at all. I'll give you an example. If you go to Lower Kororo Terrace here, near Housing Finance Bank, if you go to outside Kampala Parents School on Sadler Way, there were sections there in around March, April, the ones which you are seeing all over the place, or sections in industrial area. Now, those ones you can't patch. You just have to clear out a section, so about 200 meters, and rebuild the road afresh. That's sectional repairs, and that's normally done by that work now becomes heavier than the KCCA's in-house engineering team. Then the third phase is what we call rehabilitation, complete overhaul. That you have some roads that have lived past their sell-by date, that you need to reconstruct them afresh, and some of them you want to improve on their usage and possibly make them larger. The Kampala City Roads Rehabilitation Project, financed by the African Development Bank, came to sort out particularly that phase of reconstruction. That's why the roads that we are selected, Port Bay Road, Old Port Bay Road, these are roads that, Port Bay Road and Old Port Bay Road, this is an international highway because it terminates at Port Belpaia, which is a gateway into the country, where you expect huge trucks, where you expect cargo to be coming in. The road requires to be expanded so that it fits the need for huge trucks and the small cars that bring you and I into town and out of town, including prison buses. So the road designed to be made 4-lane. And that's happening right now. If you go there, construction is going on. Then you find roads like Salama Road, huge important road, but it has broken down so badly that you need to reconstruct it. That's also part of the roads. Industrial area roads, 5th Street, 6th Street, 7th Street. Now, all those are roads, Kabega Road and other places. I gave you a table of what is in this project. Over 70
That is
kilometers.
it's on the screen.
Over 70 kilometers of. So the three patch regimes that I've showed you, routine maintenance, section repairs, and complete overhaul. Now, as I conclude, Mr. Chirabu, you as a Kampala resident, when you are traveling from your home to UBC studios, all you want is to move on a seamless road surface until your destination. You don't know which part is going to be for routine maintenance, which one is for section repair, which one is for complete overhaul. And that's why oftentimes we have to keep reminding our people in Kampala that there are roadworks currently going on, and when we do these roadworks, it's not a magic bullet that today we're going to do these roadworks and you'll never see a pothole here or a patch there. It's a going concern. Our biggest challenge, Mr. Chirabu, has been that the rate at which the roads degenerate, or how we use them, Ngabana Kampala, is higher than the releases for money to maintain them. That if in your pocket you are only able to get 2,000 shillings, but your hunger requires you to have 10,000, then you will always remain hungry, even if you put in a stopgap measure of eating it. So that is the state in which Kampala is. That we have a need for maintenance of our infrastructure. But the available budgets, for the most part, is not commensurate to the task at hand. But what's happening now is that our leadership, led by our incredible executive director, we have engaged different sets of stakeholders, from Parliament to Ministry of Finance. The other day you saw when the President announced the 6 billion and all that. It did not come out of accident. It was as a result of continuous engagement with different stakeholders and raising to them the important fact that this is, for example, the Greater Kampala metropolitan area. You get over close to 70% of the non-agricultural GDP. That this place accounts for over 49% of the industries, for example. They are all concentrated in here. So there must be a concerted, deliberate, and affirmative action plan for the development of infrastructure in our city.
Now, Simon rightly said, I've been looking at routine maintenance, sectional repairs, rehabilitation or complete overhaul of our roads. Now, durability and quality of work has been questioned. 2, cost of work in these 3 sectors: routine maintenance, sectional repairs, and rehabilitation. When you go to routine maintenance, many of the times people have wondered if the road just needs routine maintenance, this way of coming and putting whatever type of soil, not even maram, I think people get chalk or something and put that, then tar.
Let me call and lime, what you call chalk.
Crushed stone and lime. Kasiate, we shall get out of this studio. I take you to a road. We go to experts, the engineering board, and tell them to prove if this is crushed stone and lime. But that is for another day. Now, how durable is this? Yes, we are just maintaining. But you know, how durable? Because they feel it today,
and tomorrow it is back to
and tomorrow it is back. What if you had a better way or better substances or something to use to give it durability? When we go to sectional repairs, a section of a road is repaired. Yes, the cargo is much and all that. But within a very short, when you talk about this Kololo, those roads were done, like you rightly said, so long ago. But you look at a road that has just been worked on.
Mr. Chirabu, you're sounding like my grandmother in the village who says, you see, for us when we were growing up, we never fell sick of malaria. But you children of these days, you're always falling sick of malaria.
This is about durability. Simon, you're not, you see, you can't have a road worked on within a space of 3 years and it's deteriorating, yet we look at a road that has been there for some time still standing. How best do you explain that?
A road built here in the 50s, no doubt. Let's look at the population pressure on this city 50 years ago. The Axolotl 50 years ago. Just close your eyes, Mr. Chirabo, and the view, and look at outside the former Electoral Commission on Ginger Road. At this time, peak hour. As I speak, at any 1 square meter on that road, it has not less than 1,000 kilograms on it in terms of pressure. That is 2023. In 1970, when my father was a young man in this city working at this very station as a technician, there was barely a car passing there. So there are different times, but what is for sure, Mr. Chirabu, it concerns you as much as it concerns KCCA with regard to one, value for money, durability, and technical specifications of our roads and other forms of infrastructure. Because let me tell you, it bothers us that we have got to keep doing the same work. And that's one of the things we put in place for our contractors to abide by. That, look, you're going to do technical tests on the quality of soil, of where you are working, dig boreholes and pick out a column, take it for test and know. Then you have to come and test the materials. Then you have come and apply them in the best way they should be applied according to industry best standards. So where you find a faltering, and yes, I don't deny the fact that we've seen roads work, and we have some contractors that we have put a blacklist on because they provide shoddy work. And it is our continuous quest to ensure that the contractors we have are up to speed. But as you know, Mr. Chirabu, we work in a country where the moral turpitude sometimes of different facets of society is questioned, and so you always have to keep a hawk's eye view on them. And we encourage you as citizens to also play your part of oversight. That you, Mr. Chirabu, where you see a road has been worked on, and in 2 weeks it has generated, make the cry and hue. You heard of the pothole in stride with grace and recognize it as genuine and honest feedback from citizens of this country who feel well and good and mean well for their country. And so we went to the back end to work. Likewise, when you see something going wrong, and there are many things that go wrong in this city, Mr. Chirabu, not forget about road construction that goes wrong, many other things that we do that we shouldn't be doing. You've heard of allegations of corruption within the rank and file of our enforcement officers. You have heard of all sorts of things. Report.
Okay, now that is done, member, or you've just talked about the port bell. At a time, we had the Lord Mayor, I'm not going political, but I'm looking at the substance, where he mentioned a budget of about 600 million going to waste, HIV prevention, buying condoms, setting up clinics, and there have also been some information that the cost of doing a kilometer of a road under KCCA is much higher compared to maybe the regional costs and also other, because I mean, individual of this work, why do you inflate costs of constructing roads? We need more roads. You're putting on a road much money than it should be worked upon and denying us in terms of mileage and coverage of road network.
It's an old song in the hymn book that we must have a uniform unit cost of road construction across the region. And people who make that argument are as simplistic as me saying, we see it in saloons. You, Chirabu, with half your head desertified, you have no hair naturally on half your head. And Chibiranga, you pay the same price at the barber shop. In essence, one of you should be paying less. The barber shop sets one standard price for a haircut, never mind the size of the head or the scanty population of hair on your head. That's not the case with road construction. There are many facets that go into the cost of a unit road construction. And this cry and hue over the current Kampala City Roads Rehabilitation Project, that's where I'm going to go in, because that's where the cry and hue has been the loudest. Number one, that money is financing from the African Development Bank. The African Development Bank is going to pay directly to the contractors. The African Development Bank, working with the government of Uganda, gave a no objection at every step of the procurement process. The procurement process is such that you pick the lowest, best evaluated bidder in terms of price and technical nuances. So it is not a unilateral decision that was made in the boardroom at KCCA with Madame Chisaka and her cohorts around her and Kasiate making a decision on the price of the road. No. This required technical evaluation of all the brains in there, including the African Development Bank, who at least you want to say are a little bit up there in terms of moral turpitude, if you don't trust your Ugandan officials. But also, have you looked at the specifications of these roads that we are building? All the Port Bay Road, Salama Road, and all the other roads under KCRRP, of furniture and other things that are going to be on the road. For example, all these roads will have covered drainages as opposed to open cast working on a road, and our friends, the cable companies, come and dig, put their things and go away and then leave the place undone. All these roads are going to have street lights at every 50 meters across the whole duration. These roads are going to have impeccable landscaping and greening. These roads are going to have signalized junctions. These roads are going to, that is not as usual as what we have seen.
I hope my producer can give me the list of those roads that are going to be worked on, so that the people watching are able to know that yes, our road is under yes, that's the list of the roads that are going to be.
Those what I am seeing is what we have been working on in terms of routine maintenance of pothole repairs and the like. Yeah,
we'll have that.
But don't worry, I will be explaining through them. So, Mr. Chirabo, this KCRP is going to have 33 public toilets. Where are you going to build these toilets? On the road? Beneath the road?
Land.
Thank you very much. So when you are purchasing a plot of land by a major highway like Port Bay Road, what is the cost? Where are you going to put the markets? Where are you going to put all these other infrastructure? So that brings into, we're going to have parking spaces for huge trucks along those roads. But also, most importantly, Mr. Chirabo, I want you to appreciate that the cost of working here cannot be the same as a sea-facing country like Kenya next door. So these costs have been arrived at. You mentioned the case where someone is saying, why are we spending 600 million in health prevention? I wrote an article to that effect to say, look, international best practice and now as a standard contract participation is that you must have social amenities as part of the project. HIV and AIDS continues to ravage us so badly. Chirabo, will you subject your son to go and work on Old Port Bay Road? No. It is possible a helpless child that fell out of school from Bujiri, that has come, he's 17 or 18, he's on the nuances around that place, but he's going to live on that roadside for 3 years. He's an 18-year guy boiling with adrenaline from adolescence. And he's seeing these MOOB students crisscrossing all over the place. Let's not forget, he makes some money over the weekend. You do not want to actually support and make sure this man lives to see another project by providing him, one, an on-site clinic, some HIV and AIDS interfaces in terms of counseling, testing, and yes, where needs to be condoms. That would be so unfair to the young population of this country. Two, the project costs. So you cannot say, no, we will not even buy food or water, but do you know that as we build roads, we also budget for water, just pour on the road so that businesses are not affected by dust? That costs money. So all in that statement, he who alleges, then you come and hold us in flagranto delicto.
Wait, we're still moving on with Simon Kasiate here, who is the deputy in charge of corporate and of course.
I thought you were going to say, Lord Mayor, you and I would fight on set.
That name sets you. We are not in a rainy season, but also one of the challenges of Kampala, Simon, is flooding. This is a problem that has been, seems will be, until we don't know which direction our savior may come from. Because
it rains for 10 minutes, it floods for 2 hours. You know why?
Look at these arcades. People, their businesses, their offices. And at the end of the day, these people pay taxes that go, of course, we know they go direct to the consolidated fund, not until of recent. I saw the lady mayor advocating is to have these taxes come to KCCA. I wonder which deal now you struck. You people are not at par. But when we see your money bring you closer to be at par, that
it's not money, it's service delivery. That is where the technical and political side of KCCA converge, because our interest is the well-being of the people of Kampala. And I thank because of the two arms of KCCA, the executive director leading her technical team and the Lord Mayor leading the political side to ensure that whatever we do, we may have disagreements or we may have arguments, which is a healthy way of running society. But at the end of the day, the well-being of the people must be paramount. Now, Mr. Chirabo, you mentioned about flooding, and I tell you that flooding is a function of a failed drainage system. Why is our drainage system failing us? There are many factors, but one amongst them is something that we, the Banachibuga or the Kampalans, are doing it ourselves.
Just a little bit, let me remind my viewers that you can be part of the topic of discussion. Send a message, a question, an observation to Simon Kasiyate this morning regarding infrastructure development in the city. The number is on your screen. Please send a text or a WhatsApp message and I'll be reading it out.
Or those who prefer to do it on Twitter, where they normally shout at me, at Kasiyate is my handle. When I get out of here, I give it to them double barrel.
The double barrel man, continue explaining, but with the facts.
You saw a video trending not long ago of a gentleman in police uniform superintending over the wanton, deliberate and brazen disposal of plastic waste in our biggest channel, the Nachibuo channel. So where do you think all those plastics were going to end up? They're going to end up somewhere in a choke point where they would hold the channel in a place where water cannot flow. And when water can't flow, it will flood. That one happened to be on a camera. But every day, there is someone who's watching us right now. You look at the screen now. See all that debris in the channel. Is that poured there by KCCA? No, it is poured there by Chirabo, Kasiyate, and others in this town. We drink from plastic bottles and throw out of our expensive cars as we go about our business. Some of us take it even a notch higher. We pick the garbage from home, drive out of our homes, look for where you see a mufureji, pick the rubbish from the boot of your car, put it there and run away. This rubbish will find its way in the drainage channels of this city. When it rains, this is what you see over there. KCCA struggles every single day. We have got in Uganda Abampi Nabawamvu, who we have deployed every single day to dredge out that stuff from the drainage channels. But like I say, the rate at which we pollute our drainages, we, Banakampara, is higher than how much we can take out as Kampalans. Now the solution is this. People ask, but Simon, you don't provide us with garbage skips around the city.
That's exactly what I was going to ask. That Simon, you see, you're talking of a problem of temporary stagnation, people blocking, but KCCA, you failed to find something affordable, available. I want to take you back during the days of... no, let me just wrap this.
Right outside your gate here at UBC, how many garbage disposal areas do you have installed by KCCA?
About 1 or 2, and they are full.
And the other third one was stolen.
Still, what is it easily to be stolen? Now, why people leave their homes with the garbage and they have to dump it? Because one, previously you had dumping skips, you know, where someone knew that I'll leave my home with my garbage. As I'm driving, then I'll push it there. You had someone looking after these, and it was fairly okay. Even the poorest among the poor knew where to take their garbage. Now you went into something that was anti-people, not pro-people. That is tendering this out. I stay in Kampala, I experience this. When I don't want to mention the companies, someone knocks at your gate, we've come for garbage. One, there isn't a standard fee. You look at your hip and say, Wanogumuchi tundu, 15,000, if not.
It's garbage compressor trucks that go at least once a week to collect garbage from neighborhoods. And you know where you are required to put it by the roadside, where the KCCA...
That works in Korolo, in Nigeria, but this... middle fairly. Simon. The issue you went into, KCCA looked at
recently,
money.
We bought an extra 10 garbage trucks and distributed 2.
Then where are they?
They are in this town, and guess what? They joined 12 others, so there are 22 of them. Those are the compressor trucks. Are
you on the ground?
Believe you me, I am not on the surface.
Yeah, you've gone very deep under the ground.
Because Mr. Chirabo, personal,
it is an issue, Kasiyate, of state
without a doubt.
Then go to the town, even here. How much these companies are extorting exorbitant fee? We do businesses downtown.
No, we want to mix
reason
and bad business practice of our
because it was a
subcontractors.
bad decision.
It wasn't, Mr. Chira.
Ask anyone renting a shop downtown, even before we go to domestic, west, downtown, how much do they pay daily on garbage? You see, we must find the reasons why certain things are happening.
But Mr. Chirabo,
if
Mr. Chirabo,
a person is...
If you are able to generate that much garbage from a business premise, it means you are busy.
It may not be making money.
How? You cannot
to
say,
that extent.
listen, Mr. Chirabo, you cannot tell me that you're filling up your pit latrine, but you're not eating. There must be something. There must be an input that leads to an output.
That's why we're eating cheap food. Because you must...
Let's not be... Look, there is personal responsibility of proper disposal of garbage. You have a dustbin in your home. Accumulate your garbage in the best way possible. And know that on Thursdays, you bring it by the roadside. I live in a neighborhood here in Mbuya off Robert Mugabe Road, on a road called Church Close. I have my neighbors there whose names I will not mention, but I'm sure they are watching on the program. They had the indecent indiscipline of picking garbage from their home and throwing it in the Mwana near my home. Until I had to say, gentlemen and ladies, we must learn to live responsibly. That's not personal responsibility. It is thinking that someone should be able to clean after your mess. When you live in a city, you must live with certain mannerisms that are... Don't bring your mannerisms from your village in Bugangari, where I come from, for example, and bring them to the city. In Bugangari, you can stand by the roadside and urinate a projectile, because there, it is a village. But even that village has become modern these days. But you find people in this town behaving so badly that animals in the wilderness will look at them with awe and say, oh my goodness, humans are behaving like this? That you pick rubbish. Never mind that the Kampala City Council track has delayed. Okay, fair enough. Let that be an incompetence on our part that we are willing to face.
And a person cannot stay with this garbage, neither can they afford the costs that were put by the authority because they thought these, certain services is not tendered.
No.
One of them maybe should be garbage.
I mean, next time you're going to say public toilets should not be paid for.
Public toilets, and of course, I know many of you just walk into because we pay. What's the relevance of the tax then we pay? Because, Simon, believe you me, we may call for personal responsibility. And that I agree with you. But when people can't afford a service, they're left with no option. Someone's not going to sleep with garbage. It's not going to have...
Has whims and fancies and needs. But it does not mean that because your whim is higher than what you can afford, then you must somehow afford it anyway. That is breaking rules. Chirabo, okay, now let me tell you about my level. I can say that my dream car is a Mercedes-Benz G65 AMG. And you'll go to a hospital, Kiswa Health Center, expecting to get free medication and find that the medication is not. At the end of the day, you will ail overmuyi and possibly you may even end up dying. Where did it all begin? From your personal irresponsibility. So, whereas the city authority, indeed, a lot of work ought to be done with regard to providing these services.
Even the trash cans, there are very few around.
The president did guide not long ago. He said, KCCA, isn't there where you can find garbage skips every 200 meters in this city? And we're working on the technicality and feasibility of which, because it also costs money. Are we also taking good care of them? So I'm going to digress a little, Mr. Chirabo. You have asked me many times, Kasiate, the city is black, it's dark. Naira Avenue is dark, it's one of the big avenues in Kampala. And I said, go right outside UBC. UBC is on Naira Avenue. Into the ground and steal the batteries.
The allegations that the people who put them there come and fetch them, that an ordinary thief, an ordinary Ugandan may find it hard to climb that pole, pick that battery, do in-house checking. Kasiate.
Well, I had that conversation with your policeman at the gate when I was coming in, and he told me exactly that I think this is the UBC standard response. Then I also asked him. We had cases
I've ever seen people I thought they were maintaining, then later I heard that the batteries had gone.
Then I asked him, we had cases where police posts were being raided and guns stolen. Can we also authoritatively say the police were stealing their own guns? And he said, no. I said, exactly. So it doesn't mean that those who install are obviously the ones who come to steal them. They may be, but not all the times. People who vandalize and steal cars may not necessarily be owners of cars or even people who work in spare parts industry, but it's just some need to come and look for Kasiate physically. You need just to pay from the comfort of your phone, follow submit your documents, upload, and you should be able to get your services right there by the help of technology. Because technology reduces interpersonal interface, and that in one way solves one big problem that we have in this country, the elephant in the room, which has a name, and the name is corruption. When you leverage technology and then provide the right infrastructure for people to do their business, reduce on commuting time, to ensure that they are working in spaces that are befitting them through proper infrastructure, undoubtedly you have created people's well-being. And that is the tenet of the Smart City campaign or agenda that we are running. Yes, where we find challenges, including enough financing for which, but like they say, the struggle continues.
Well, the struggle continues. There is so much that the people of Uganda expect from you in terms of using it, but also for us city dwellers and of course Ugandans. It is our city after all. Let's all work together in improving our city. Some of our habits, we should long have bypassed them, as we also hope that KCCA, most when it comes to garbage, will also install. There's so much levels of vandalizing and stealing. Some of the very important garbage collections that KCCA puts in place, at the end of the day, it's us to suffer. It is our city. The next hour, the sportsman is here to take you through sports updates. Good morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC.